Welcome to Always Honest, where two friends unpack the beauty and chaos of faith, family, and everything in between. One honest conversation at a time.
If you've ever stared at a single pink line and felt your chest tighten, or if you've been told to just relax while your heart silently breaks, or if you've been trying to stay hopeful while your body and your relationship feels like it's unraveling, then this episode is for you. Today we're talking about infertility. It isn't rare anymore, and it's deeply personal, and we're going to break the silence. Okay, Madeline, mood check. Where are you on a scale of rainbows and sunshine to clouds rolling in?
Well, I'm partly sunny because we have this little critter. I was thinking about this last episode. I'm like, our family's growing.
I know.
And it grew again within 2
Grew
weeks. So
again.
you guys send help because I can't stop. These baby animals are getting me. We added this little furry gal to our family. Her name is Maisie. Leah here actually
Legally.
set me up with a hookup from a friend. She's pretty sweet, but she's very hyper and not as cuddly as our first cat. So I'm kind of like, okay, but she's
She
sweet.
likes that. She's purring.
Can you hear the purring? Yeah, the girls love her. It's just fun. But then my husband, like, he's working a little extra today, and so I'm like, last night I was like, okay, I have 12 chickens to make sure they're okay, 2 dogs, 2 cats, 2 kids, lunches. I was like, this is I'm like,
It's a lot of creatures.
I need to stop. Yeah, but she's sweet. So how are you?
Yeah.
Where are you at?
Yeah, pretty sunny. I
Good.
feel like as we do the segment, it's like obvious that the weather plays a big role into like how I feel. But it's also because, during the summer things responsibilities lighten up as far as like our homeschool load and all of that. So I'm excited for just like the summer activities of like outings and, like day trips and stuff like that. So
Yes. I'm excited to I wanna plan some stuff with you guys. I want our families to do fun stuff together. So I'm looking forward
I have
to
lots of ideas.
Yeah, great. Okay, we're gonna put this little girl back.
Yeah.
And we will get on to our topic.
Okay.
Infertility isn't just a medical diagnosis. It's a journey that impacts your identity, your relationships, your finances, and your sense of hope.
Infertility affects roughly 1 in 6 worldwide. 17.5% of people globally face infertility across all income levels. So this is definitely something that is relevant to a lot of people.
Okay, Leah, as I know this is part of your story, you guys dealt with infertility. So get us into it a little bit. When did you start dealing with it and what did it look like?
Yeah, so we were probably married 4 years before we even started really trying to have kids and thinking about that. And so you're not officially diagnosed as infertile until you've tried for a full year without success, at least at that time. So we tried for a full year and then finally went to a fertility specialist, endocrinologist, who said, everything looks fine, keep trying. So another year went by.
Wow.
And we kept trying and nothing. And so I was getting really nervous. And so we went back and then they looked at our numbers again and said, okay, here's the reason. And so then I remember sitting in the office and the doctor saying, yeah, you're not going to be able to have kids. Wow. And I just remember looking out the window. It's kind of like when people get like I imagine like when people get like a cancer diagnosis or something very permanent that everything else fades away and you just hear those words. And so we were just, that's all I heard. And then I went back to work, and then I just remember I went back to work and I was crying.
That day you went back to work?
That day I went back to work.
So 24 months before you were told this. Bring us into that a little bit. Did you ever want to give up? Did you stay hopeful? What did that look like? All of that waiting.
Yeah, it was really discouraging because, of course, at that time, all your friends are getting pregnant. Month after month, you're getting a notice that somebody else online is pregnant, and every one of those stings, and it's hard because you want to be happy for them, but you're feeling completely left behind. There's a huge amount of shame, obviously, where you feel like maybe I did something wrong, maybe I deserve this. There's even people who imply that sometimes. And we'll talk a little bit later about things that you maybe should and shouldn't say to somebody facing this, but there can be a lot of shame. Obviously, it puts a lot of strain on your relationship because then you're kind of looking at each other. Is it you? Is it me? You know, I want this. And you're kind of both grieving in different ways and dealing with it in different ways. So it can put a lot of strain on your relationship. Plus, it's putting a strain on the thing that's supposed to bring you together, you know, your intimacy. So then that is scrutinized and that you're picking that apart. And so, I mean, it really just touches, like you said, on everything, your identity, your worth, your finances, because then you've got to start looking into that. And I guess we can talk about that in a minute. But so anyway, it was a roller coaster for sure. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it described that way, but every month you're hopeful that this is going to be the month that I'm going to see a positive, you know, those two lines, but then you don't. And so it's hard not to be so disappointed every time that happens. And something that is also not talked about a lot with infertility is secondary infertility, which is when you've had a child and then you try for that second and it doesn't work. And that can be obviously really disappointing for a whole host of different reasons. So, you know, you may have experienced that, or other people may have experienced that side of it where, you know, you're hoping for a sibling and it was so easy the first time and then, and that can be hard too. So,
So within your marriage, did you and your husband navigate it differently, the waiting and the grief of this, or what did that look like? You know, you guys going through that together?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to speak totally for him because he's not here. And but I think generally as guys, and at least for him and what he would describe as a guy, he just wasn't really processing it. You know, he just kind of stuff it down. And so, I mean, I didn't know that at the time, but you know, in hindsight, that's kind of how he described it. I, of course, was just wanting to talk about it with him but I also felt a big sense of that I was going through it alone because it was a little bit different for him. And so I think we both felt we were going through it together, but also a little bit isolated. So I think I wanted to talk more about it, him not so much. And at the same time, it was something that we could grieve together and talk about. It brought us together in the sense that other people couldn't understand what we were going through. So we had our own sort of thing there.
So you're at the 2-year mark. You've been told you can't have kids. What's next? What did you guys do next?
So then we started exploring adoption. And that was way more overwhelming than I ever thought it would be. Because all of a sudden you've got these options of international adoption and baby adoptions, you know, where you find somebody maybe in the US that is currently pregnant, as opposed to like from an orphanage or something like that, or foster to adopt, which I did get licensed to do foster to adopt. And then my father-in-law sent us an email. I remember this day very clearly. We were going through all of the options, and you know, it's really strange weighing like what you want them to look like. You know, do I want them from Europe? Am I open to other countries? Other countries are opening and closing their doors, so there's a lot of complications there. There's the finances, anyway. So all of that, and then we get an email from my father-in-law, and he's telling my husband about embryo adoption, which at the time not a lot of people have heard of. Still, a lot of people haven't, but it's a lot. It's more known now. But anyway, I heard that and I was just like, what? Like, that is so weird. What? So embryo adoption is where you have a couple who has a surplus of fertilized embryos after going through IVF, in vitro fertilization. And they're not going to use the embryos, so they are donating them to couples who are willing to, then carry that embryo and raise the baby. So, considering having somebody else's fertilized embryo, basically like a surrogate, and then giving birth to it was like wild. I was like, that's crazy, but I'm a little bit crazy. I'm willing to do that. And I love the idea. it was scary, but
Mhm.
yeah, I loved the idea. So
Yeah. Wow. So a couple that had started, like their journey was like difficulty, then like it was like life was almost produced out of their own, journey. So do you want to, I have so many things. Do you want to share with us? So how many kids do you have? Share your story. Like, so you have 4 children. So share what that looks like. Like you.
yeah, so they did the transfer. The first one did not take. Then because we were just impatient and desperate and like, well, we don't want to wait forever to do another one. The statistics were increased if we put in 2, which I think nowadays, I don't think a lot of fertility doctors want to. Ours was hesitant, but we insisted because it's more risky. I mean,
Okay.
a twin multiple pregnancy is high risk.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but we were desperate and we insisted on doing 2, and on our second round, and both took, and so we have twin boys.
I love it. Okay, so you have twin boys. Keep going because you have more children. So.
Yeah. So then we decided we would do one more. So then anyway, we put one more in, and it took, and then that was a girl. And then we felt like we were done because we were pretty overwhelmed as parents. And then God was like, no, you're not done. You actually are just going to get pregnant on your own. And so one day
My
when
eyes are going to tear out with that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I think it gets me because I'm like, it like makes me want you to, did you ever like want to call that doctor or like go to that doctor and be like, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
Like I'm pregnant. Because I've heard other stories where the doctors are like, oh, you need to abort the babies. They're not going to live. And then the mom's like, and this was a friend of mine years ago, and she was like, I'm not doing that. And the boys are like healthy and alive. So it's like the doctor, I don't know, it makes me want you to go like tell the doctor like what you said wasn't going to happen did happen. So or I don't know, which is probably not right, but
yeah, no, we were shocked. And
yeah,
I mean, because we never thought that was possible. We were told it was not possible. We had completely given up and not even thought about it.
Isn't that
So
crazy?
yeah.
I
But
think
it was just different because I was used to these babies now and like what they look like and how they act, and they're similar, and then I'm like, I don't know what this other one's gonna be like.
Yeah.
But she fits right in.
She does. Yeah, your family's so beautiful. So let's backtrack a little bit because your story is beautiful, but we know there was a big middle chunk of your story where it was painful and hard. And so if someone's listening where they're going through that, talk about when your friends are getting pregnant. I myself am someone that kind of deals with like jealousy easily, like a little bit envy. And so I can only imagine like that wanting to be happy for your friend, but being angry.
Yeah.
So what did that look like? How did you navigate
exactly. That? I was so jealous, and I was so mad at myself then for being jealous that I couldn't be happy for them.
Right. Like it's like a shame cycle. That's like, now I feel good. Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw other people deal with infertility and they would go to the showers. And we all have different reasons, but I got to a point where I couldn't. I knew that I just would sit there in misery and like couldn't hide my feelings. I wouldn't be able to hide it. So there were certainly some that I just couldn't go to. And then I just felt so guilty that I was so absorbed with myself and my own grief, but it was just too much at that point. And so I mean, I don't know, I would pray, and I just felt there was a point when I felt like I could give it to God. It took a while, but there was this song that was based off of a Puritan prayer that really spoke to me, and it was like, so it says, let me learn that my losses are my gain. To be low is to be high.
Don't make me cry. We can't both cry.
And in the valleys where you make me more like Christ.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's good.
Yeah, I shared it at a women's retreat that I spoke at, and it just meant a lot. I think that was just where God spoke to me, through that.
Yeah. So you said the valley is where you become more like Christ. I was just listening to a podcast, and he was talking about that. Torrin Wells, the singer, how we think joy comes from like earthly things, but joy actually comes, the Bible says, I don't know the verse, but he said that the verse says, when we sow tears, we reap joy. And it's so backward sounding to, culture, but it really is. That's where we find him. That's where things grow. And so it's so true. Your story is, that's why it's so powerful, because, that's one of the hundreds of valleys people go through. But it's beautiful when you can see him in.
Yeah.
How did your friends, were they understanding? Did you lose friends throughout this? Like you not showing up to a baby shower, you know?
I think that anytime I didn't go to a baby shower, those friends were understanding. But I certainly had some people who were the kinds of people that I could trust
Yeah.
to see me,
Yeah.
to feel seen in it. And then other people who every time we got together, it was all about,
Mm-hmm.
Breastfeeding and
Mm-hmm.
the baby sleeping and here's the baby story. And
Mm-hmm.
and and I don't fault them, because I know when you're a mom how wrapped up in it you are, because I think I've now been on that side, and I'm sure I've done that to other people.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just my experience, that
Mm-hmm.
they were
Mm-hmm.
totally oblivious when it was really hard for me.
Yeah.
And then there were other friends who it was like they would ask,
Mm-hmm.
and they would check in, and even though they had kids, they were totally like there with me in it.
Yeah, that's good. Should we talk about some things that you would encourage others, like what to say, what not to say, if they know someone going through
For
this?
sure. Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to know this. I
Yeah.
mean,
I think so. I did make a list to
Okay.
remind myself of some things. Should I just read it
Yeah.
like this? Okay. Hopefully you don't see my sloppy handwriting. Some things of what not to say. Just relax. It'll happen when you stop stressing.
So I'm gonna pause you already. What does that make you feel like when someone says that to you?
It implies that it's your fault. Yeah.
Like your stress is causing your infertility, so chill out, that type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. At least you're having fun trying.
That, I don't know, that's just quite the
Yeah. It makes light of the emotional and physical
yeah.
pain
Like
that
who
you're
said it's
in.
fun? Who said this is fun? Did I say that? Like
I got all these comments.
wow, okay.
People are trying, but
Yeah.
this is the effect that it has when you say these things, unintentional
Yeah.
effect. You can always adopt,
Mm.
and that offers a solution without acknowledging the grief.
Mm-hmm.
Everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm guilty of saying that, because you can kind of see the end game when you're not in it. You're like,
Yeah.
it'll all work out,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it feels cold and dismissive of the person
Mhm.
who, when they're in it. This last one is, my cousin tried and got pregnant after giving up. So I know we all have those stories. Obviously, I'm guilty of, probably sharing my own with people.
Mhm.
Oh, then I got pregnant, But anyway, it applies like a pressure to, like, you've gotta earn it. You've gotta wait
Yeah.
and just chill out, and then it'll happen. You've got to
Yeah.
earn it. So what
Wow.
can you say
Mhm.
to people
Mhm.
who are going through infertility? I'm sorry you're going through this. This must be incredibly hard.
Mhm.
You're validating their pain.
Mhm.
I'm here to listen or talk or not talk.
Mhm.
So just offering your presence and your
Mhm.
support without
Mhm.
any pressure.
Mhm.
I love you. I'm in this with you. And is there anything you want me to know or to say?
Mhm.
Yeah, all of those would have
Mhm.
been really meaningful to me.
Mhm.
Just,
Mhm.
and I think you could apply those to a lot of situations that
Yeah.
people are going through. Like,
Yeah. I think almost we get uncomfortable with people's pain of like, oh, I don't know how to, so relax, or I don't know, like maybe it's like, but it's like to be vulnerable yourself of like, I'm gonna sit with you in this, and I'm just gonna be here with you. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, and it is offering a vulnerability in the sense that you don't necessarily have answers.
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
want to have answers, but
Right.
you are being vulnerable to just offer, just to
Mhm.
listen and be there.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
First, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your courage. Oh gosh, I don't want to cry. I know it's not easy to talk about painful things, and although you were on the other side of it now, you know, it's still something that there's going to be just the pain of it is still, you know,
something you carry with you.
yes,
And
yeah, like it's not like it's yeah, you still went through it. And so to be able to share it is just brave, and I appreciate you, and I know that it will encourage someone else. So what would you, before we close out, what would you just want to tell someone right now if they're in the middle of infertility? What would you, like, one thing you'd want them to carry with them?
what I would say to somebody who is going through it is, I don't know how it's going to end, but this is not the end of your story,
Yeah.
and that the pain won't last forever, and that you're not alone.
Yeah. This is not the end of your story is
Yeah.
like my mantra. Like
Yes.
it's people that are in the valley need to hear it because
Yeah.
it does feel like the end. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we've said, the whole reason for our podcast is just that you're not alone,
Yeah.
and that you don't have to suffer silently alone. And that's one thing that can be really hard about infertility, is that you feel like you can't necessarily share it with people because it's not just you, it's you and your partner, your spouse. And so it's like, there's some private things that you can't necessarily share, and so a lot of times you suffer silently. So I guess just finding that community and finding other people, and just that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And the pain won't last forever. I don't know how it will end. I don't know what will be next, but
Yeah,
it
that's
won't
good.
it won't last forever.
Yeah.
Will you share with us some short mama wisdom?
Yes, it's really short, which is surprising for me. But back to like gardening. I don't know if you feel like this because you're also a gardener. But I feel like God really speaks through it. I feel like, I mean, you hear the word roots and growth, and it's like it's just so relatable to His word. And I was telling my husband this, how I feel like He kind of just gives me little like reminders, or like, you know, moments of, oh yeah, where we plant all the seeds in the garden, um, but nothing would be produced out of them if we didn't water them and care for them. And you plant the seeds, but there's still so much to do. It doesn't stop there. There's thinning, there's watering, there's pruning, all of the things. And it makes me think of our faith journey, and how the seed gets planted. That is the first step, but it's not the end. Like it can't stop there. We have to water our faith and prune our faith, where maybe things have to get out of our life, for things to grow, whatever it may be. But there's care that goes on to see the garden come to life. And so I think if we are, new to the faith, or even just I don't know, just like, who God is. That's like the first step. You believe in Him, but then there's so much more growth that can come um when we take care of our faith. Yeah, like, there's never a point where we stop and say like, okay, the garden's done. Like, there's always something to do. And I think that's, and not doing like in a performance based way, or like you have to.
There's always things that you can learn
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
observe and
Yeah.
grow in, and
Yeah, to see the fruit. And yeah, okay, I'm gonna say one more thing. Just because I just listened to this on the podcast this morning and it was so good. I'm not gonna say it as good as him, but speaking of fruit and trees and whatever, he was saying how joy is a fruit of the spirit, right? But if you think of a fruit tree, like an apple tree, the apple is not like an ornament we hang on the tree. The apple gets produced out of the tree from it being taken care of. And so I think as Christians, sometimes we feel like, I've got to be joyful because I'm a Christian. No, the joy of the Lord is my strength. Okay. But joy is not something you put on. It's something that it's who Jesus is. And so he even said joy is not a feeling, it's a person. Like, joy is Jesus, peace is Jesus, self-control is Jesus. And so when we can't expect to be joyful, I guess, if we're not taking care of the tree. And because then the joy comes out of us. It's not something we need to feel like we have to, all these fruits of the Spirit have to be like decor for us because we're a Christian. It's really something that produces out of us. So anyways, two things to kind of think about. But You know what? I'm gonna say one more thing. I just want to encourage all the listeners to grow something. I feel like just go get yourself a little pot, a packet of seeds. You don't need a big garden. You don't even need a pot. Find a place in the ground. I don't know. I just am a firm believer in growing something is so good for our souls, whether it's one tomato plant or of an abundance of produce, a flower, whatever. Tend to something that's not just you. You know, where if get your focus off of yourself a little bit and take care of something else. Watch it grow, take care of it, prune it. I guarantee you God will teach you something in it. So
Thank you for sitting in this space with us today. If you are experiencing infertility or love somebody who is, hopefully this made you feel a little less alone.
next week we are shifting gears and talking about boundaries, what they are and why they're hard.
Especially for women and moms, and how to set them without guilt.
Yeah.
If you're tired of being overextended and drained by things that no longer serve you, you won't want to miss this.
Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to leave us a review, comment, like, subscribe, all the things. And we will see you next time. Until then, stay honest.
Bye.